Hello and welcome back to the Violinist podcast. Today I'm thrilled to present you the greatest violinist with whom I have an honor to play ever in my life, Gil Shaham. Hello.
Too nice, too kind. Thank you, Max. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yes, and it was really great pleasure to play with you. I remind myself all the time that concert.
It was such a nice time. I remember we were in Luxembourg together, and what was the program? I played Beethoven Violin Concerto,
Yes.
but then you did. Do you remember what the rest of the program was?
I think there was one Beethoven symphony and something modern also. Yes, Slavichki,
Yes,
something
yes,
like yeah.
that's right. But also there was a piano soloist, right? At some point.
Yes, it was.
I don't remember. But it
No,
was a nice time making music and being together.
yeah, that's true. Could you maybe tell a bit of your story, just very short?
My story. When I was a kid, I started violin lessons. I was 7 years old. So I know you have you have one brother
Yeah.
who's violinist, and I have an older brother who's a pianist,
Okay.
and a younger sister who is also a pianist. And so I started studying violin, and somehow, I guess my childhood was in Jerusalem, in Israel. And then we came to the United States, we came to New York, and it was a bit of a language barrier for me. My way of dealing with that was, I think, looking back, was going into my room and practicing violin. And so that's really when I became more serious about music, and I always loved it. Even as a very small child, I remember, somehow people would always have music for kids. Kids were always singing. There are always children's songs, and there was always some sort of music. And so yeah, I guess by the time I was finishing high school, I was lucky enough to have a few invitations to play concerts, and I was very lucky that those invitations kept going, and here I am. You know, 30 years later, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Just feel very, very lucky.
Nice. So can we say that your hard work brought you where you are now?
Look, I think music is hard work, right? It takes a lot of hours. Um, Violin, you know, it is hard work. It's like, I imagine it's similar to what sports people go through, athletes. You can work for 30 years, but you still have to practice the next day. It's not like you can't. So there is a lot of hard work. I think I was also very lucky. And yeah, I guess when I talk to young people who want to do music, I always think of it. I try to think of it in terms of like just the analogy between being a musician and being an actor. There are many similarities. You know, there's a very difficult craft that goes behind it. And also, there's something about you go on the stage, you have the ideal that the author gave for you, and then you're supposed to bring it to life. But also, in terms of your own life, you need luck, you need to, sort of be there and have opportunities and create opportunities for yourself. And you never know what your future will look like. Right? I think there are many similarities between our lives, and actors' lives.
Mm. So not only practicing, but also you should be very active and enthusiastic about what you are doing, right?
But you gotta love what you're doing, I think, and I think with music, most people do, right? I think when I see fellow musicians, yeah, we all kind of share this passion. We love this art.
Hmm. You know what impressed me the most when I read about you, that you have been for 10 years a signed artist for Deutsche Grammophon, but then you left and created your own label in order to achieve your musical freedom. And it so much resonates with my own values because it's something what I'm also trying to do, like recording myself, you know, finding my way. What you can tell about it, what you can advise?
Yeah, I mean, this was a long time ago. This was in I don't want to say that it was around 2005, something like that, 2004. And I was, again, I feel like I was very lucky that I was maybe young enough to take on a kind of a risk. It was a bit of a risky thing to do, but also I was old enough, like I was established enough that there were people out there who maybe knew my name, who maybe would buy a CD, and so we were able to make it work because we have this model that if we sell enough CDs, we can make another CD. You know, today I don't even think. Yeah, I think we sell some CDs, but I think most of it is not from CDs anymore at all. But I think that what's happened is that technology has changed our lives. Um, we've been set free by the amazing technologies that are available to us. We can make the highest quality recordings on our phones, or I was going to say on a laptop, but maybe even on our phones. When I started out, you used to have big refrigerator-sized machines, Dolby machines, state of the art, and you would edit the magnetic tape, with a razor blade, you would cut and paste, and yeah, and now you can do really all of that and at extremely high level, very relatively inexpensively compared to before. So it really set us free. And the other revolution, of course, is that we can reach our audience with the press of a button. So
Yes.
it really is an amazing time to be an artist. And I'm very happy that I did that, and I think many musicians now do it. Many orchestras, maybe many individual musicians in the classical world, in the pop world. It's just a sign of the times and of the technologies that are available to us.
Yes, I agree that it's much easier nowadays. For example, even what I'm doing, I'm just recording myself and just putting through distributor to Spotify, and that's all. It's like already there. Like no special work, some picture, audio, and you're done.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And how long have you been doing that?
Well, for quite long, but actually, I I was trying first just YouTube, and now I'm last year and a half doing Spotify, and it's kind of getting some success very slowly, but the most popular recording actually just recorded on the concert on just this portable recorder, and it's very popular, so people like it.
Yes. Yeah. Um, you found that you prefer the Spotify to the YouTube.
Yes, because well, it's very long story, but
It's interesting. It's interesting.
yeah, because Spotify pays very small amount, but at least they are paying something. And what I found that YouTube does not pay until you have something like 1,000 followers and 100,000 views or something like this. So
I see. I see. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and
And it keeps changing. The world keeps changing. So it's hard to stay on top of all of it.
yeah, and what is your advice could be? How do you think how like modern violinist can develop himself?
I don't really know that I have the advice. I think it's just you got to love what you're doing. And yeah, I've been very lucky in my life that people have invited me to play. And, you know, often I think people would pay me not to play, you know. I think, you know, but so far I've been very lucky that people have been um, invited
But
me, hired me to play, and
but uh,
yeah,
but but many musicians, and I myself also, when I was growing up, we liking to search for some magic formula, that once he endured this got success.
yeah, yeah. There are some funny things, right? Like I guess they call it like the star system, right? Like we live in a celebrity world, and so some people, if you become famous enough, then you can you can do more things than maybe if you're not as famous. Um, and I think that's something everybody has to be comfortable with what they do, with what they're prepared to do, what they want people to think of them. Yeah, yeah, it's a complicated thing. I don't really understand it, but I feel very lucky with my music.
Yes, and also what I found that, for example, I still doing my studies. I'm about to complete this year in Sibelius Academy in Helsinki,
Mm.
and I had
Ah,
during all my years of studies, I had really great, amazing teachers. But what I found that it's kind of a bit lacking of actually what we should do after studies, like like where to find the job, how to develop yourself. So
yes. Um, yeah, I would imagine if you were running a school, yeah, maybe there would be people there who would be able to help graduates, or there would be some sort of network of possibilities. Yeah, there is a time in people's lives when they go and they, really, I was very lucky when I started out, but I think everybody goes through this after school or maybe at the end of school where they shoot arrows in all directions. You do auditions, and some people do competitions, and you try out and you try to build a, you know, network of contacts, I guess, and and you hope something happens, and I think it can be a very discouraging,
yes, that's
anti-musical process,
yes.
you know. And when I look at young people, I think it's exactly the wrong thing at the wrong time, because I think of, people who just finish school, who are ready to go, people who are prepared, who've got all the skills, who are in their prime, and then right off the bat, they need to be encouraged. They need to be lifted. They need to be supported. And instead, it's sort of like, boom, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it is what it is, and you got to stick with it and find your way.
But how not to get discouraged, not to lose your enthusiasm? Because yes, for example, auditions to orchestra, I did so many of them, and they are so tough. You
Oh,
know.
yeah, I don't know. Look, for me, I can tell you, it always hurts, when something doesn't work, or if somebody criticizes or something. Um, but I guess we want to remain um, somehow more even keeled. We can't. I I don't know what would you say? I mean, in one way, I think it's good to know that it's coming. You know, you can't expect. You know, it's just not going to be all a bed of roses, right? Um, it's just going to be. Um, and I like something that Yasha Heifetz once said. You know, they asked him about critiques and criticism, and he says, "I don't pay any attention to that because I am my own worst critic." And I think there's something very compelling about that philosophy. You know, if you know, if you know that you are your own worst critic, if you as an artist take yourself out of your art and look at it as objectively as you can and criticize it as harshly as you can, you know, then I think that gives you a strength, that gives you a very good foundation to to face whatever is out there for you and for your art.
Yes, that's true. Because also I after many auditions, I found it's sometimes even confusing because so many different people and so many different opinions. One says it's too romantic, another says it's too, I don't know, too much vibrato and so on, you know.
Yes, yes. Look, I do think you can learn from anybody and from everybody, you know. So you try to do that, but ultimately, yeah, I do like that. I think you have to be your own worst critic, and I think you from the people that I've met, people have good instincts. You can trust yourself, you know. If you record yourself and listen to it later, sometimes you hear it differently if you listen to it 6 months later. You know, you have a different perspective.
Yes.
But I think you can usually trust yourself, you know, and that's a good grounding, a good foundation.
Yeah, it's a very good advice to record yourself and trust yourself too.
I think
And
I never used to record myself. My
really,
teacher always said, even in my day, we had little cassette record like Sony Pro Walkman or I forgot what it was, but I never recorded myself, and I didn't like it. You know, I had a block. You know, I didn't want to
okay.
hear myself. Um, but over the last maybe 15 years, since the phones have this app, you know, I just turn on like voice memo app and I record. And the truth is that it's very efficient, very, very helpful. I can hear something in a recording straight away and fix it the next time, you know, that I could have practiced for, 100 hours and never heard, you know, so that I do think it's very, very helpful.
Okay. And you're playing Stradivari, is it right? Yes.
I'm very lucky these days. Um, there's a very beautiful violin. I guess they call it the Haupt Stradivarius
Okay.
from 1719
Uh-huh.
that I'm able to play through a foundation here in New York called In Consortium in New York. It's very, very beautiful violin.
Nice. But you also, am I correct that last time when we played, you played some different violin?
Yeah, sometimes I play also um, on a, so sometimes I play on a modern violin by Andranik Gabarian,
Uh-huh.
which I enjoy very much to play. And I also have another violin, another Strat that I play.
No, very nice. What do you think in general, like, because not many people can afford a great violin, how important the instrument is?
It's so interesting. I'm just now learning a little bit about instruments, and they really do. change, right? Don't you? Do you find that different instruments? I find myself using different bowings, using
Yeah,
different violins, different fingerings,
of course.
different phrasings. It really is. It's hard. It's very hard to know what's you and what's the violin. You know.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I don't really know. There are some very brilliant makers around today who are making beautiful violins, and there are lots of treasures in many different price ranges out there for violins. So I guess you want to be with a violin that makes you happy. You know, you want to be with some instrument that you're happy to take out of the case and play.
Yeah, that is kind of gives the sound what you expect, right?
Yeah, yeah, you know, yeah. There's so much gradation in violin. There's so many colors. There's so many timbres. Um,
So
yeah,
you should find just that one which you feel that resonates with you, let's say.
yeah. I think. Look, there are so many variables. You want the action to be comfortable, so that you play in tune, right? You want things to fall in place properly. You know, you want um, you want the strings to speak at a certain speed or a certain way for your bow. And then you can look at even more, right? Then you can look at the different colors and the different textures. And just now when you said that, I was remembering something I heard Pinky Zuckerman said. He said, in his opinion, you can take a dark sounding violin and make it sound brighter.
Mhm.
But he said it's all much harder or impossible, I think he said, to take a bright sounding violin and make it sound darker.
Okay.
And I think that maybe that's true. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
It's very interesting.
Not that I would know. I don't know so many violins, but I do remember him saying that, and rings true.
Hmm. And as we talked already, that there are so much opinions. What do you think? Like, for example, if you want to get a job, should you try to change your playing in order to kind of I don't know how to say, to feed that orchestra, for example, or you should keep your own playing?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I don't know, but I think if you play with conviction, either way, it's better than being torn. You know, if you have a passage that you're going to play for a listener in an audition or in a concert or anywhere, and you're not sure how to play it, and you end up playing it one way or the other, that's much less interesting, I think, for the listener than if you're sure that you're going to play it this way. And maybe the listener prefers, likes a different choice or that. But I think whatever it is, with conviction is good. When I hear students play, I often say, look, I don't know the right phrasing, but whatever you choose to do, make sure it's clear and make sure you're convinced.
Oh, it's very good advice. Really nice. And I'm personally, and I think many our listeners too, actually using nowadays practice material recommended by our previous guests at this podcast. As well, I read some books which they recommended us. Can you tell what is the best practice for you, and which books can you recommend to read?
Books to read. As far as practicing, I really don't know. I really don't know. I've always been so undisciplined with practicing. I think recording yourself helps. I think, I use like a tuning app sometimes these days, which I think helps. If you can listen to harmonies or drones or figure out where you are for intonation, it helps. When you asked about books, to my mind, that came this book, which I often recommend. It's a very interesting book about Bach, called Dance and the Music of J.S. Bach. And the names of the authors escape me right now. But they're two brilliant professors. I want to say both women, both Americans maybe, but a very fascinating book. It's not very fast reading, but it's about this thick, and it talks about the various court dances, and also how dance just permeates and organizes the music of Bach. And I thought that was fascinating. And maybe some of your viewers will enjoy that too.
I will read it. It's interesting, and kind of practicing material. You don't have any special.
Wow. I don't know. It's always good to practice solo Bach. It's always good to practice Paganini caprices, Yeah.
Very nice. And what would be your greatest advice for the violinists around the world?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just so heartened that our art is thriving. There's so many violinists out there who love this art, and who are interested in violin, and who are so proficient and masterful at it. I think that's wonderful, and also very precious. It doesn't have to be, right? It's wonderful to think that it is still so interesting for people after so many, what is it, 300 years more, if we think of the modern violin.
I think it's even gaining a bit of popularity nowadays.
I think that's true. I do think that's true. So I think, it's just so full. It's a very fulfilling thing to have in your life, and just to enjoy it. No matter what circumstances you're in, just enjoy it.
Just enjoy. Very good wish for the end of our interview. But I really thank you very much. That I know you're very busy with your concerts, and of course not much time. So I really appreciate that you gave us these great advices.
No, I don't know. I don't know about great advice, but I'm just so happy to be with you, and happy to see you. And I hope we see each other in person soon.
Yes, me too. And play.
Play and make music. Yes.
Yes, that's the best what we can do.
Oh.
So thank you, and thank you our listeners for listening, and follow up our channel. I hope to bring some more interesting interview. Goodbye.